Cedar Point, the roller coaster capital of the world, the mecca for roller coaster enthusiasts, and the creators of that catchy commercial tune from the 90s. Oh yeah, this song is peak. Cedar Point, I just love this park. I love Cedar Point. I try to visit this park every year if I can. There's a reason why so many enthusiasts hold this park to such a high standard, because you're not gonna find a better roller coaster collection than Cedar Point. You can make an argument for another park like Hershey. They got a lot of great roller coasters there. I love their Intaments. They got a great top 3 Intamin collection. Busch Gardens Tampa, possibly. I would maybe throw that park in as another contender, if it wasn't for the fact that Iron Gwazi kind of holds this entire park together. Without Gwazi, the entire lineup is very B&M heavy, and you all know how I feel about B&M. To me, what makes a really good roller coaster lineup is a strong top 3. If a park has an outstanding top 3, then I can spend multiple days there. But Cedar Point, they don't have a top 3, they have like a top 7. Not only do they have a large quantity of coasters with an astonishing 18, a number that, keep in mind, has only been beaten out by 2 other parks, with Energylandia and Magic Mountain, with 19 and 21 respectively. But Cedar Point, they also have a great quality of roller coasters. There are very few quote-unquote bad rides at Cedar Point. Most of them are good, and some of them are in the upper echelon of god-tier roller coasters. So whenever I go to Cedar Point, I want to spend at minimum 3 days here, and I might have to extend it to 4 because they just keep adding new rides year over year. I mean, this year alone, we finally got Top Thrill 2. Let's just hope that we can keep Top Thrill 2. And not only did we get this ride, but we're also receiving Siren's Curse, a bucket list ride that I was praying for Cedar Point to get one day. I always wanted to see a tilt coaster at this park, and they did it. They got one. Maybe it wasn't exactly intentional, but I still call this a happy ending. I wanted a tilt coaster to go to Cedar Point anyway. Even if another park in the Six Flags chain deserves Siren's Curse a little more. Okay, a lot more. Either way, I'm gonna enjoy the heck out of this ride when I eventually get on it. It's just another phenomenal addition to the best park on Earth. Sorry, Cedar Point, I'm done now. Cedar Point, they may be opening up 2 major roller coasters in 1 year alone, but I can't help but ponder over the question of what is Cedar Point gonna do after 2025? What roller coaster will Cedar Point get after Siren's Curse? And then after that? And then after that? When will it ever be enough for this park? How many roller coasters can Cedar Point realistically add moving forward? Again, Siren's Curse, it's their 18th roller coaster. 18th. If they build 3 more roller coasters, they'll beat out Magic Mountain. No, 2 more roller coasters and they'll beat out Magic Mountain. Sorry, Superman, you will forever remain a dormant lawn ornament. Honestly, is there any number of roller coasters where Cedar Point will feel comfortable enough to stop? Probably not, but sooner rather than later, they might be forced to. Because Cedar Point, as we know, it is a very landlocked park. They're basically on an island. The entire park is contained by Lake Erie, so there's only so much land to go around. If Cedar Point continues on their exponential growth plan of adding a new roller coaster every 3 to 5 years, there is an inevitable possibility that they're gonna hit a wall, where they physically can't expand anymore. The only problem is we don't know when this is gonna happen. We don't know when Cedar Point is going to be completely developed, and when they will be physically unable to even build a new roller coaster because they simply don't have the room for it. Will this happen in the near or distant future? Will Cedar Point be forced to cap their coaster collection? There is a real possibility. So let's take a deep dive and explore Cedar Point's peninsula to find out when they will run out of space. When I originally created this thought experiment, I knew that determining Cedar Point's occupancy would ultimately come down to 2 values: the amount of land that Cedar Point owns and the amount of land that Cedar Point is yet to develop. Then all I would have to do is take that undeveloped land and apply it to a theoretical prediction for how long I believe it would take Cedar Point to develop that land, and I would subsequently get a year where any form of development would be capped. Cedar Point, as we know it, it takes up around 365 acres of land, and by utilizing Google Earth, I can confirm this. Cedar Point, they do own most of the peninsula, with the exception of this one residential strip. Now, of the 365 acres, according to the United States SEC, Cedar Point has developed 82% of its land, with only 18% left undeveloped. However, I am not too inclined to believe this figure, because yes, a lot of the land at Cedar Point, it may already be developed, but it is not developed to its fullest potential. For instance, the parking lot, that is technically developed land, but you can still do something with it. You can weave a coaster along the side of it. You can take out part of the parking lot and put a new coaster in that plot of land. What about blighted buildings or mediocre rides at Cedar Point that might be removed one day? The land might already be occupied, but they can level it and reuse it. It's a tale as old as time. You can take out an old attraction and replace it with a new one. And sometimes you don't even have to do that. Parks today, they're getting a lot more creative on where they can put their new coasters. My favorite example has to be Rathrikshaza. I did not believe that Six Flags can put a dive coaster in that tiny plot of land, but apparently they could. They had the ride go over the pathways and valley it in pocket-sized strips of land. So just because a certain area might seem fully developed, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. As long as there's space above your head, a roller coaster can go there. You can always add more volume to a space. So when observing Google Earth, there are a few blotches of land where I believe Cedar Point can add a new roller coaster someday in the future. But to be as realistic as possible, I'm going to add a few contingencies to the map by blocking out these zones. No, I do not think Cedar Point would ever tear down the Hotel Breakers or Lighthouse Point to build a new roller coaster. Those areas of land are off limits, along with Cedar Point Shores and any maintenance bay. I will, however, include the Cedar Point Shores parking lot. This is probably the biggest plot of land that Cedar Point can one day utilize. I mean, the parking lot, it's just sitting there. There's not much of a need to have a Cedar Point Shores lot. If Cedar Point can somehow expand the parking lot at the front of the park by either adding more spaces or installing a parking garage, then Cedar Point, they can easily relocate this entire lot. And then they can reroute Perimeter Road around it. Cedar Point, just have your guests walk to the water park. I know, walking, it's a scary concept for most people, but getting rid of this parking lot would be the most efficient use of space. It's right there in the back of the park. You can access the land by making a pathway around Gemini or just taking out Gemini, and then you would have the ability to develop a massive plot of land. Other than repurposing the parking lot, there are also these plots of lands I think are ripe for development, including but not limited to all of Millennium Island, the Snake River Falls plot of land, the Rapids, and the entire Cedar Point Midway. They can definitely make a coaster stretching in and around the entire front half of the park. To reiterate, space above your head. Overall, these potential future expansion pads take up around 36 acres worth of land. Now, how does this translate into new roller coasters? Well, it's kind of hard to actually quantify how many roller coasters we can get out of this plot of land, because not every roller coaster is built equally. Some are more sprawling, some are more elongated, others are compact. Plus, not all that space would be strictly used for roller coasters. Cedar Point, they gotta use their land wisely. They gotta build water rides, they gotta build flat rides. They need restaurants, walking space, infrastructure. But if we hypothetically wanted to use all this land for 100% efficiency for roller coasters and roller coasters alone, then potentially Cedar Point, they can build a total of 12 roller coasters. How did I get this number? Well, I took a baseline coaster from Cedar Point's lineup that I can translate and copy to fill up the 36 acres of land. The coaster I chose was Valraven because this kind of ride is very standard. It's decently big, but not too big, and it can also be seen as a compact because it only takes up 3 acres of land. So if we want to be generous and say that Cedar Point only has room for 12 more roller coasters that are all in the style of a compact like Valraven, how many years will it take until Cedar Point officially runs out of land? Well, if we assume that Cedar Point, they stick to their current strategy of adding a new roller coaster every 3 to 5 years, or their actual average of 3.27 years based on their coaster openings from the last 3 decades, then Cedar Point will theoretically run out of land in approximately 40 years. Or in the year 2065. That doesn't really bode well for longevity now, does it? However, I did not include removal. This 40-year figure is assuming that every single roller coaster that is currently operational at Cedar Point will remain operational at Cedar Point in 40 years. And that is not practical. Not every single roller coaster at Cedar Point is going to stand the test of time. So whenever Cedar Point removes a roller coaster, all of a sudden there's now space for a brand new roller coaster. If we look at the numbers, Cedar Point on average, they remove a roller coaster every 7.65 years. So if we readjust our 40 years to account for removal, Cedar Point now has an astonishing 69 years until they run out of land. Obviously, this number, it is best case scenario. It assumes that all the land is strictly going to be used for roller coasters, and they're all in the style of a compact like Valraven. So to be safe, let's put a standard deviation onto this number, plus or minus 20 years. So Cedar Point, they can either run out of land in a maximum of 89 years, or at minimum 49 years, all dependent on what kind of coasters they build, what kind of rides they remove, and how much land each roller coaster takes up. But if we stick with the 69 figure, then I won't see Cedar Point run out of land until I'm 90. And I don't plan on living to 90 with my McDonald's diet. So in 69 years, it's not even gonna matter. The point is, Cedar Point, even though you're one of the most landlocked parks in the world, you still have a lot of space to work with. So build away, build whatever coaster your heart desires. You'll figure it out. And you know what? It can always be worse. You can be in Knott's Berry Farm's position. The only thing more frustrating than building around water is building around the bureaucracy of California residents. So, who really has it worse?